with USAID. If you were to look into the money that USAID is spending, the taxpayer dollars, and it's not just income taxpayer dollars, it's other taxes as well, not just federal income tax that's paying towards these programs. Your average American, doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, is going to say, yes, I want this out. I want it. Like, I had no idea that my money was going towards this. I thought it was going towards education.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Hey, Naresh Vissa is with us today. We're talking about Doge. Is there any hope for cutting back the federal government and eventually controlling the deficit? Are we too far down the path of oblivion? Well, Naresh, a new administration, a new way of looking at things here, new people, new personnel, a lot of fat being cut. We saw with USAID or USAID, billions of dollars being wasted on ridiculous things. A lot of it counter to
hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions.
Their budgets, I can't get a straight number on it, 47 to 52 billion a year. So over time, they probably wasted $1 trillion. They've always been a cutout for the CIA. It's always been a front organization. Interestingly enough, Obama's mother worked on a project that was funded by USAID in Indonesia. A lot of the characters in the Kennedy assassination worked for USAID, and all of these ne'er-do-wells. Interestingly enough, Liz Cheney started her career there. So should we be crying for the demise of USAID, or should we be celebrating here, Naresh?
Well, Kerry, I think one thing, first off, thanks for having me back on. It's been a couple of years, and you and I go way back. So thanks for that. Always a pleasure. One thing to remember, Kerry, is why people vote in general. And I'm not talking about a small fringe minority. I'm talking about the tens of millions. It's really close to 200 million people who vote. I think it was 150 million people who voted in the last election. So why do people vote? They vote not because of, like you brought up, some project that's going on in Indonesia, or because of some project that's going on, some transgender research that's happening in Pakistan or some Middle Eastern country. People vote at the end of the day because people are selfish, which is a good thing. They vote in their own self-interest. They vote
Perceived self-interest.
We can call it their perceived self-interest. And what you just brought up with USAID, if you were to look into the money that USAID is spending, the taxpayer dollars, and it's not just income taxpayer dollars, it's other taxes as well, not just federal income tax that's paying towards these programs. Your average American, doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, is going to say, yes, I want this out. I want it. Like, I had no idea that my money was going towards this. I thought it was going towards education, and it clearly hasn't, because the U.S. education system has not improved. If you just look at test scores, it has not improved in 30 plus years. The U.S. is still somewhere in the 30s to 50s when it comes to reading, math. The fact that only 25% of eighth graders graduate at an eighth grade level in mathematics shows that our taxpayer dollars are not going towards the issues that actually matter to Americans, the reasons why they vote, which is, can I afford my mortgage or my rent? Is my job stable? Do my children get a good education in their local public school? Am I able to afford healthcare? These are the reasons why people vote. And when you look at USAID, the average American can tell you that they don't know what the organization is. They don't know what the money's going towards. And we're seeing now the transparency of Doge. What I love about Doge is they have an X profile, they have a website, and they have a quarterly podcast. They did their first quarterly podcast earlier this week, and they're being very transparent about what they're finding and publishing it to the public. So yes, Doge is a good thing. USAID, there's some programs like Secretary of State Marco Rubio said. He said there's some programs that are great in USAID, and those are going to continue under the State Department. But there's a lot of I mean, we can assume the 80-20 rule across the board. 80% of the workers can probably go find other jobs elsewhere. 20% of the workers are probably very strong. 80% of the money in USAID and just government agencies in general are being wasted, but 20% is probably going towards a good positive cause. So it's not 100% bad. It's not 100% fraud. But the point
It's
of
pretty close. It's pretty close.
80% is very close. And the point of Doge, and this is what I love. I mean, I wrote papers like this, or papers about the concept of Doge when I was a high school student. This idea of going in and looking at every single expense line by line. It's called zero-based budgeting.
Yeah,
It's how I have always budgeted my own personal finances and the two small businesses that I own. Whereas the government has gone off of the previous year's, and many companies do this too. They go off the previous year's budgeting. They say, okay, last year we spent, let's say, $10 trillion. So that means this year we can spend $11 trillion, which I think is just really, really, that's not a fiscally responsible way of doing anything. And I know people who do that with their own personal finances. It's just not fiscally responsible. So yes, it's a good thing that USAID is essentially shut down. The good programs are staying. And it's a major reason why people voted for President Trump, because of his partnership with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. They were going to go in, clean house, and keep the 20% of the workers who are worthwhile and get rid of the other. It's going to save us a lot of money, Kerry, a lot of money that can then be handed down to the American people, either as tax cuts or better education funding for the individual states, or just paying down the debt. I think a lot of it should just be used to pay down the debt. And this is going to drive inflation down. And we won't see, I think, probably you and I are a few years apart, but in your lifetime, I don't think we're going to see massive inflation like we've seen since 2021 to present day. I don't think we're going to see that again. If Doge can go in, Trump can go in, cut spending, pay down the debt, we'll be in a very good fiscal place moving forward.
Yeah, well, I agree with you there. The one thing that has made all this possible, and it wasn't up to recently, is AI. One of the guys that Musk has there, he worked at SpaceX. Before that, he actually created an AI program to actually translate all of these burned scrolls from Mount Vesuvius and to translate them. So this guy is a rocket scientist. And, we always say jokingly, it ain't rocket surgery. But in this case, the U.S. government needs rocket surgery here. We're just wasting so much money. And look, you and I both in online businesses, both disseminate information. Well, the U.S. government alone has given Politico, and I don't want to get into their politics, but you can figure them out. But they gave them $32 million to spew their garbage. And in the meantime, they were funding a lot of other organizations to stop otherwise independent news sources, news sites, from getting their information out and getting them demonetized by places like Google. And, this whole conspiracy, it's just been totally exposed.
It's true. It's not a conspiracy anymore.
But a lot of the spending, we're just not going to be able to get rid of. All right. Yeah, maybe there's a lot of fraud with Medicare, but there's a lot of people that count on that program. I don't know how much fraud there really is with Social Security. We're going to find that out. But Social Security is pretty much untouchable. I can only imagine how much fraud there is in the Pentagon, though, right?
It's government. Any government you go to, from somewhere in South America to Africa to the United States. You're going to find fraud. You're going to find corruption. And Elon Musk put out an X yesterday saying that they've just now started looking into Medicare and Medicaid, and what they're finding is going to blow people's minds. So it's not surprising. None of this is surprising at all. It shouldn't surprise you. It certainly does not surprise me. And I'm glad. This was the number one reason why I was excited about the administration, because we would actually see change. It was hard for Trump to do this during his first term because the fact of the matter is he was new. He didn't really understand how they don't have work.
Personnel as policy.
He didn't know who to trust, who not to trust. He was a newbie, and it worked out that he took 4 years off, was able to assemble a good team, really get his policy in order, and he's hit the ground running. Or it's only been 2.5 weeks, and he's really hit the ground running. Now, going back to what you said about Medicare, Medicaid, these blanket statements that I hear people on the far left say, for example, they say, oh, you can't touch Medicare. Our Medicare payments are going to be gone, or our Social Security payments are going to be gone, or Medicare is going to be gone. That's not what's happening here. People who currently get Social Security won't even know that this investigation is happening in the background. The idea is to go in and, again, go through line by line, employee by employee, and see, okay, what exactly is it that you're doing as an employee? And is this something that AI or technology, which is the main reason why Elon Musk is in this role, it's to basically replace people and systems and processes with technology to save the government hundreds of billions of dollars. So they're starting with the workers, and then they're going in line by line to see the actual expenses. They're auditing. That's what they're doing. And I'd love for them to audit the IRS as well. They're going in, they're auditing, and they're not going to be auditing, or they're not going to be cutting back on Social Security payments. They're just looking to make sure that everything adds up, and that every expense, whether it's $10 or it's $10 million, is something that is worthwhile and actually helps the American people. And I think most, again, doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, the fraud that they're finding, most rational, sane people would say, hey, I actually agree, we should cut this. And you're seeing Democrat politicians, from Congress people in California and Silicon Valley all the way to Senator Fetterman in Pennsylvania, saying, yeah, we should trim this fat, and that should be money that is used to pay down the debt. We can at least agree on that. We need to reduce the debt, which in turn, or pay down the debt, which in turn will help reduce the deficit.
Right. No, I could not agree with you more, Naresh. It's ridiculous, the amount of money that literally just gets pissed away here for no tangible benefit, right?
We're talking curtains in the government buildings, curtains on windows that cost $50,000 plus. We're talking rolls of toilet paper where the government is paying something like $5 per roll. Per roll, not like the big, 48 rolls that you get per roll.
For one of these, Naresh, on a certain airplanes, they're paying $1,000 for them, and they keep breaking, and they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these cups. It is
exactly
utter madness.
And this is going on. This is what I mean. This is the type of stuff that is going on in these agencies, from USAID to most likely Social Security Administration, Medicaid, Medicare. So this is where the left-wing media will lie, basically. They'll say, completely, oh, they're cutting Medicare, they're cutting Medicaid, we're cutting the toilet paper in the Medicare offices. We're cutting, meaning we're going to negotiate a better deal on the toilet paper rolls.
Well, think about it. If the algorithm is off on the computer that calculates how much they pay Social Security benefits, and everybody is getting $5 a month more than they should, that's $60 times tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions. And do you know that they pay out the correct amount every month? I don't. And, they were talking about that the government paid out $230-something billion in unauthorized payments, programs that weren't reauthorized, they just kept paying. And the people in the Treasury, Naresh, were instructed never reject a payment.
Never reject payment.
Yeah. And then when the accountability people go in there, they try to bar them from going, like at AID, AID. And the only thing about AID in USAID is the acronym, but there's no aid going on there. It's all about soft influence and coups, and it's a cutout for the CIA. But the fact is, they tried to stop these guys from going in there, and it didn't work out too good for them, did it?
Well, look, what I like about Elon Musk, this is supposed to be the Manhattan Project of our time. That's what Trump called it, the Manhattan Project of this generation. And I love that Elon Musk is going in and immediately giving people buyout packages. Their deadline is tomorrow, I think, tonight.
Yeah, this is
today or tomorrow. It's probably tomorrow because tomorrow's Friday. Anyway, their deadline's coming up, and the people who don't accept the package, then the mass layoffs are coming. And there was a lot of questioning from both sides about what can this Doge do? They're not even a real government agency. Like Congress is supposed to be authorizing payment.
Early advisory.
And
they don't have everyone saying, well, they got our data. They don't have write capabilities. They can only read data, which means they can export it to a spreadsheet, whatever. But these billions of records, they don't care that X is getting $2,000 a month from Social Security. That is completely irrelevant, right?
It's absolutely irrelevant. And in the case of Doge, they're going in. This has been tried with Democrat administrations, Republican administrations, where they say, we're going to cut the fat, we're going to do all this stuff. And they have this task force. Nothing happens. But we're actually seeing it in front of our eyes because you see the riots, not even protests. You see the riots on the streets. You see people losing their minds on the radical left on social media.
They already lost, let's face it, Naresh.
I mean, they lost their minds.
Or they never had any minds to lose in the first place, right? True?
Right. Well, whatever was left of that mind, it's lost. And again, they don't even know what's being lost, what money is being lost. And I bring this up because Elon Musk this is supposed to be the Manhattan Project of our time. It's supposed to be an 18-month project, and he's come in and he's made so much change, and you can see the impacts immediately. And I think we're going to see those inflation numbers like almost immediately. When I say almost immediately, we're already 4 years in, or 3 years into 3.5 years into this inflation crisis. No, we are 4 years into this inflation crisis.
Yes.
I think he can get it down to 2% inflation by the end of 4 months.
Remember,
we continue.
He said when he went in, he was looking to save $1 billion a day. Now, Musk is saying they could save $4 billion a day, which is close to $1.5 trillion a year. And that's without even breaking a sweat. Once they really get into it, probably $2 trillion is doable. And we'll have a better national defense, right? We will, you're not even going to notice, just like with when he took over Twitter and he got rid of 80% of the people working there, and it worked better than
we noticed for like 2 days during a weekend. I think X was very glitchy for 2 days on a weekend, and then people again, the left was like, you see what happens when you fired 80% of your workforce and Twitter's down, and then on Monday everything's back, and we're now 1.5 years in where it's going great, and there have been no glitches, and it's only improved, and their net profit is increasing. And so I think the same thing is going to happen with the government, with any business. I'm a consultant, and I've gone into several clients' businesses and laid off people. And I didn't lay off people because I didn't like them. I laid them off because they weren't performing, and if they weren't performing, then the business was not performing.
Well, their jobs were useless, right? I mean,
they were replaced by people in-house. So we increased the roles and responsibilities in the people in-house. And what on almost every layoff that I've done, having less people actually equated to more revenue and, of course, more net profit. So it's weird how that works, because you would think that let's just hire everybody and things should just grow and companies should just grow. But no, that's a deep, every organization has its own, let's call it deep state, has its own managerial class and an administrative skill. And if you trim the managerial class and administrative state, the people who are collecting salaries and just causing problems, not actually creating change like what we're seeing right now. And I get that 40% of this country doesn't like the change, but sorry, this is what we voted for. And we wanted change. We didn't want the same stuff over the last, really since Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan tried, what's it, Schedule F?
Yeah, he was the last guy who really made a serious effort at doing anything. Bush said he was going to. I mean, you really can't ever count on and this isn't a partisan thing. It's just, it's not in the Democrats' DNA.
Well, look, Trump said he was going to do it too in 2016, and that was my biggest problem.
Along with everything, all the spending that the Congress, you can never count on Congress to do this stuff. One thing is Congress has actually allocated a lot of this money, and they've apportioned it in the budget. So there's a legal issue whether Trump has the power to cut this spending off. There was a
they're doing it. They're doing it. It's happening, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court most likely. He's going to have Congress behind it. What I like is the entire party has rallied around Trump, and
they have no choice.
They have no choice. They may not like it, but they have no, and they've rallied behind it. And now all of his appointments, all of his cabinet appointees are going to be approved. Even the ones who people were iffy about, like Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, they now have enough votes to. So the fact that people have rallied around Trump and his ideas, I think this is great. And Elon Musk, I think it's great that he has a huge role in this administration. For 18 months, he's going to clean house, and we're going to look back on this 3-4 years down the road when it's time for the next election and say, hey, we needed it. It was painful. We understand it was painful, but the country is better off because of these cuts, because of paying down the debt and reducing our deficit. So I think this is great. I've been waiting for this forever. I didn't think it was going to happen in my lifetime because of the bureaucracy, because of the red tape, because of the swamp, the deep state. It's a huge swamp, and they're cleaning shop, and I love it. They're cleaning house, and I love it.
Yeah, it's about time, right? It's
absolutely
freaking time.
It's about freaking time. And what this is going to lead to is the biggest tax cut that this country has ever seen. And I think what people need to understand, again, when you talk to leftists, they hate tax cuts. Why do they hate tax cuts? Because they don't really work. And if you don't work and make money, then you don't participate in the tax cuts. So the whole point of tax cuts, it's to incentivize people to work and make money so that you keep more of what you make. And that's what half this country doesn't understand, that tax cuts are a good thing. We want to encourage our children to work. We don't want them to encourage them to be lazy and to get free money from the government. We want to encourage them to go out and work to make money. So when people say, oh, why do wealthy people get tax cuts? They should be giving back more. That's one of the biggest misnomers in economics or in just politics, that taxing the rich is going to help a country. In fact, treating the rich properly is what stimulates. If you read Atlas Shrugged, for example,
sure, what
happens when you treat the rich like doo-doo? Well,
they leave. They get the hell out.
They get up and they leave. And who are the people paying the largest tax? Who are the people buying the first class airfare, buying the nice cars, eating at the nice restaurant? All of those businesses are dependent on rich people, on wealthy people. And if you're going to treat the wealthy like doo-doo, and I say this, I'm Indian, and a big part of our culture, you attended my wedding, a big part of our culture is like big multi-day weddings, right? And to have a big multi-day wedding, you need to have a good amount of money. You need to have a high net worth to throw these big parties. And just imagine I have friends who work in literally the Indian wedding industry, from hair and makeup people to caterers, to decorators, to DJs and musicians and entertainers, you name it. Imagine how much that industry would take a hit if all of a sudden you say, hey, you rich people, you need to pay more money. You shouldn't have all this money left over. Well, that's how an industry takes a hit. And now apply that same concept, copy and paste it across the auto industry and the restaurant industry and every other industry is going to get hurt. That's why tax cuts stimulate. It's called supply side economics. You don't even need to think about
proven to work.
You don't even need to think about the history of it. Just think about the example that I just gave about like a wedding, right? And all the money that's spent on a wedding or an event or a birthday party. So you want the people, even if it's money, somebody told me, a leftist told me, oh, well, rich people are cheap and they don't spend. They just keep the money in a bank account, which is not true. But even if it is true.
Oh, some of them are like anybody else. But
even if it's sitting in a CD, even if it's sitting in a CD at a Synchrony Bank, or it's sitting in a mutual fund on Robinhood or Schwab, you're helping those. That's what you have to. You're stimulating those businesses, those banks, those brokerages, those hedge funds, those financial. You're stimulating them because they're charging a fee, and they're using your deposits to borrow the money out. So even if you're a rich person who's cheap, you're still assuming you don't have all your cash under a mattress, which nobody's going to have.
Nobody does that.
Nobody does that.
A big mattress nowadays.
So you're actually helping the economy. You're helping businesses. And if we go back to AOC, she's very far left New York congresswoman.
And not very
Amazon, not very bright. Who believes that the rich should have a 90% income tax rate. She ruined, it wasn't even her district. It was a different district in New York when Amazon was looking to open a major distribution.
100,000 jobs.
There were 100,000, at least 100,000 jobs that were going to be offered to people in that area. And she said, no, Amazon, you can't come here because you didn't pay enough income tax and you are the enemy. So you're a bad company. You're not welcome here. So Amazon said, okay, fine. We'll just go take it somewhere else.
And guess what? They reelected her.
It wasn't her district. It was somebody else's district. That Amazon was not going to be in her district. So she screwed over another district by not stimulating more jobs there. And that's how you screw people over. That's how you screw your own people over, by saying this is bad for you, this is bad for America, and then boom, we have no jobs. Like, why do we have no jobs? Oh, because our dummy politicians scared away all the jobs and the businesses.
This is not the brightest bulb on the tree.
This is what I mean. But you'll be surprised, Kerry. Half the country thinks this way. They legitimately think this way.
Yeah, well,
and that's just the road
to education that's lacking for sure. So what if
common sense?
We're going to get more tax breaks. They're going to be extended. I expect we'll see the corporate rate cut to 15%, and we will see the personal rates and the bonus depreciation extended forever. What's that going to do for real estate, for the economy? What's your take on it?
Well, it's going to stimulate the economy, obviously. So what the U.S. government, it appears the strategy is to cut down inflation through the government cuts. So to save the government trillions of dollars, which is going to, and yes, part of it is you have government workers who are going to be laid off. Now, they have 8-month severance packages. No company unless you're a very senior, like president of a major corporation, no company out there is given 8-month severance packages. So yes, it is sad that these people are losing their jobs and they have families and they have retirements. But at the same time, if they truly had valuable skills that are of benefit, then those skills will be transferable to the private sector, where they could legitimately make double. They could legitimately make double.
I think they're doomed myself. Now, whether they should be doomed or not is another story, but these people are useless. They couldn't make it in the private sector. That's where many of them out there went to the public sector, and they're doomed. And I don't know that there's anything that could be done to save them, honestly.
You could be right, but I'm taking the optimistic side of, hey, if you are a good worker and you do have those skills and you were cut, you could go in, like, this is actually a good thing. Like, you could go into the private, and we actually I know of doctor. I'm part of these, my wife's a doctor, so I'm part of these different doctor groups of men who are married to doctors. And I know of people who, for example, doctors, they were cut from the VA because the VA they basically said you have to come back into the office, because a lot of these doctors were remote. So they said you have to come back into the office, and many of these doctors moved like far away from where their hospital is.
Yeah.
And they said you have to come back into the hospital. If you can't come back, then you have to take this severance package. And it was 8 months of pay. Well, initially there was a lot of anger from the spouses, like, I hate this government and what are they doing? Then the wife started exploring these jobs in the private sector where they were legitimately making, after bonuses, more than double than what they were being paid by the VA. So they're like, oh, actually, the VA was a nice cush job, but the private sector, we could make double the amount we were making before. So it actually works out, and there's still a major shortage. I'm giving this example because this is an example that people can take to heart. And
I hope you're right.
Industry.
I think that's the exception, not the rule, but we'll find out soon enough. But assuming the tax cuts go through, bonus depreciation, then it's going to be
no taxes on tips. Also, that's
no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security. Hey, if we could get rid of the income tax, could you imagine the boom in this country? I don't think that he can do it for a real simple reason, Naresh, is that currently the average tariff is 2%, and it brings in $80 billion. Now, they're probably fudging another $500 billion worth of imports that come in under the de minimis rule, which has been abused. So at best, we're going to get 500. If it was 20% tariff, we would get probably close to $1 trillion. Not enough.
You bring up tariffs, which I think is important because this is a part of this ties into Doge and the income or the tax cuts. So first off, the tariffs the big tariffs Trump was talking about were against Canada, Mexico, and China. And Canada and Mexico, the tariffs it's just going to be a continuation of people forget that Biden tariffed countries also, and Trump is going to keep those Biden tariffs. Mm-hmm. So that's number one.
But they're not very much. They're no substitute for what we're doing now, They're just not, can't make up the difference.
But I want to talk about China because I actually think we should tariff China 100%. The Chinese Communist Party is the biggest threat and enemy to the United States. It is a bigger threat than Russia, a bigger threat than radical Islam. The Chinese Communist Party has done a really good job of infiltrating not just the U.S., but the global landscape. And the Chinese Communist Party can be replaced. And this is one thing I liked about Obama. He had this TPP, which was a Trans-Pacific partnership, where you could essentially replace China with India and Indonesia and Malaysia and Taiwan and South Korea, Australia, Malaysia, the list goes on and on and on. So I think a tariff against China or increasing tariffs against China is a really, really good thing. And you continue to raise funds through that. You do the TPP. Eventually, we want to become independent from China. So then how does the federal government, you can't go 100% get rid of the entire federal income tax. But this is the whole point of a TIV, right? Like the whole point of a flat tax. So and that's something that everybody has always, that at least the right conservatives have agreed on. Like, we should pay some tax, a 10% flat tax.
I don't know. What's national sales tax?
We could do that too. It's better than the current system. Just ask anybody who files their taxes and they're just lost. They're like, I don't even know where to begin. What can be done? It's confusing to even accountants and CPAs. So make it simple, make it easy. The fact that people who get the best CPAs to get the best deductions and the best tax cuts shows how unfair the system is for the lower class, for the people who deserve those tax cuts even more than the wealthy. So we need to make it a very simple tax code, make it simple, make it easy to where a person can just go on their phone and see, okay, these are the 10 to 15 rules, and easy, at least for personal income tax. Business tax would be something different.
All right. Naresh, if we want to find you, how do we find you on the web?
NareshVissa.com, NareshVissa. NareshVissa.com. You can see my latest work over there and subscribe to my mailing list and contact me through there as well.
All right, excellent. And the link is in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Questions, comments for Naresh, myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. And while you're at the site, please sign up for your free complimentary newsletter like over 70,000 other FSN members have. Naresh, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. All the best.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.